Again, ladies and gentlemen, about to begin the funeral service. We ask for those that have a cell phone or pager if you could turn into the silent mode.
The act of Kriya is as old as biblical times. When a loved one died back then, they would literally tear their clothing and pour ash upon their head. The act moves forward as a ribbon a mourner wears to let friends and family know that they're in a state of mourning for their loved one. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Dayan Emet, blessed are you, Lord our God, judge of truth.
Next to your dad. Look, he's next to your dad.
Esainai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Esainai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai, Oseh Shemayim va'aretz. Ezri me'im Adonai, Oseh Shemayim va'aretz. The psalmist wrote in those words long ago, I lift my eyes to the mountains, what is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and coming, now and forever. What is the measure of a man? His measure is the kind words people say when he isn't there, and the memories he creates that stay indelible in the minds of all who knew him. What is the measure of a man? It is the amount of love he leaves in people's hearts and the laughter he leaves upon people's lips. What is the measure of a man? It is the length of time he is remembered, his good deeds and his kind words. Measured in the length of years, stories of his best moments and loving kindness get told by family and loved ones alike. Alvin Lauter lived an incredible life, surrounded by family as much as possible. Family was everything to him. He held the moments surrounded by all of you closest to his heart. He led by example and invited you all to join him. He always lived to be there for you all, to attend all your important moments for all of his 86 years. While his tragic death has stunned us all, we join here today to celebrate his life and all the moments he shared with us. He loved watching you all grow and thrive and bring new life into the world, making him a grandfather. Al did his best to leave you with as many memories and as much laughter as he could to sustain you in his absence. Son of the late Morris and Bessie of blessed memory, survived by his sister Eunice, preceded in death by his siblings Caroline, Daniel, Jerome, Harold, Gladys, and Winette, all of blessed memory. Loving father of Brad, Kelly, Amy, and her husband Freddie, grandpa of Kylie, Brett, Randy, Alex, and Cassidy. We are blessed with the lives we share. May Al's memory always be a blessing as we celebrate who he was and all he added to your lives. The Byrds made popular these words of Ecclesiastes when they sang that there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak. Now is the time we speak of Al's incredible life as I invite up his son Brad to say some words.
I had a mental block until this morning. I woke up at 4:30, and all of a sudden, just what I wanted to say came to me. And growing up, my dad was larger than life, infectious laugh, huge personality, and when in trouble, a booming voice advising this young boy what he did wrong, which was quite frequently. My mother would tell me that as a toddler living in Skokie, I got to recognize his door slam, and I would scurry to the front door and wait for my dad to come home from work. I shared my dad's love for Chicago sports. At one time or another, we had season tickets to the Bears, Bulls, and Cubs. He derived great pleasure in gifting Stosh, the crusty old Chicago cop, and who in turn would provide a primo parking space at both the Chicago Stadium and Soldier Field. I remember how excited I was as a little boy to join him and his friends at Wrigley, not for the Cubs, but for the Bears. He would get frustrated by the mediocre Bears teams of the late 70s and early 60s and late 70s by venting to the season ticket holder next to us in an R and X-rated language. I remember being both horrified and amused as this season ticket holder was a Catholic priest. Father Casper became a family friend, and as an example of my father's impish sense of humor, he did a prayer over the bread at my bar mitzvah. As a young underage adult living at home, I was blessed never to have a curfew, much to Kelly's chagrin, when 11 p.m. was the time. Using a friend's older brother's state ID, this brother actually recently retired as the assistant police chief of Highland Park, I was afforded the luxury of both purchasing liquor, where I was the first name basis with Bilo Liquor in Wheeling, as well as to frequent the fine drinking establishments of Highwood. After college and spending 4 years with a futures brokerage house, I joined the family business manufacturing men's neckwear. I joined Carter & Holmes on February 1st by accompanying him to a trade show in Miami. I still remember sitting on the plane and going over Business Travel 101, with my dad always telling me when I was younger, I fantasized in my mind how glamorous his monthly travels were, and he said, no, they aren't. As we landed in Miami, my dad again said it's a grind and the hotels are sometimes underwhelming. And we land and I get to the Hilton and I actually have a 2-story suite overlooking the water. And I'm thinking, wow, this is how business travel is. To this day, and I've traveled quite a bit, I've never seen a room as nice as the first time. Working closely with my dad for several years, watching him run a factory of 200 plus employees in Chicago's burgeoning River North, I was so impressed that I always led by example, never asking an employee to do a task that he wouldn't do himself, whether it be emptying the trash bins on the dock or spending weekends on an empty factory floor, slitting thousands of yards of fabric to make ties earmarked for Bloomingdale's or United Airlines. When I left Carter & Holmes to pursue other opportunities, Dad was always my biggest fan to the end, wishing nothing but the best for me. Bob Altman, who is a business mentor of mine, once always said, the best thing a father can give a son is a good family name. Truer words have never been spoken. For that, I'm eternally grateful. Rest in peace, Dad.
I invite up Al's daughter and granddaughter, Amy and Cassidy.
Sorry. Last Monday, I lost the first love of my life. Known to Al Lauter as most, to me he was always Daddy. My parents divorced when I was fairly young. My sister and brother were older and in college, and it was just me and my dad for as long as I can remember. My dad was always there for me, unconditionally, from science projects to Halloween costumes to softball games and just getting in trouble. My dad was always so artistic, innovative, and clever. I remember one year he made me a Dolly Parton costume for Halloween. Shiny turquoise pants, a wig, and 2 of the biggest balloons you could ever imagine. Another year he surprised me and I was a Milk Duds box. Always surprises. He had a longer than life personality. When my dad was in a room, you knew it. He had an infectious laugh, and he was his own biggest fan. He laughed all his own jokes. I will miss hearing his laugh, and I'll miss hearing his voice on the phone saying, Aim, I have another great idea for you. My relationship with my dad was always a constant in my life and in my family's life. My dad was a great grandfather to my kids. He never missed an event, whether it was a football game, a band concert, or whatever. Grandpa was always there to celebrate their accomplishments. To know my dad was to love him, and looking around today, all these people speaks volumes. I was lucky to call Al Lauter my daddy, and not a day will pass that I won't miss him. Rest in peace, Dad. I love you.
I call up grandson Randy to say a few words.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining my family and I in celebrating the life of my grandfather, Alvin Lauter. I'm sure that many of you have been feeling what I've felt this past week, shock, pain, and a profound sadness. Processing and coping a tragedy such as the one my grandfather was involved in is no easy feat, but we all have to start somewhere. I began by revisiting the memories I've shared with my grandfather since my childhood, such as the times I'd go swimming at his apartment downtown or grabbing bagels and lox at the Lexus dealership after he got a car wash every Saturday. Then I remembered going to the Cubs games and watching Turner Classic Movies on full volume. I thought about our lunches at Once Upon a Grill, Lou Mitchell's, and the diner on the Wisconsin-Illinois border. I remembered our stubborn political debates, debating what song was Frank Sinatra's best. As I cycled through these memories, I began to think about the last moments I shared with him. I thought about us drinking my first beer, talking about how Brian Gumble and his brother used to work for him at a shop. I thought about our last lunch at Once Upon a Grill, discussing the Bulls, Bears, and Biden. He told me about his favorite places to travel and how much he loved national parks. And finally, I thought about the last time I saw him. Standing at my front door, I watched my grandpa hop in his car, pick up his map, and begin to drive. My grandfather loved driving, and I haven't fully accepted and processed what has happened, but reflection on the time I've spent with my grandfather has been a good start. I would like to conclude by comparing my grandfather to one of his heroes, Frank Sinatra. My grandfather lived life his way, traveling each and every highway from Mendota to Chicago, Italy to China, Colorado to Mexico, Yellowstone to Grand Canyon, from the bounds of earth to the kingdom in heaven. Rest in peace.
I invite Al's daughter, Kelly, to say some words.
Okay, wait. That was amazing, Randy. Everybody's saying such wonderful things. Some of mine might be a little repetitive. I don't know. If you are as fortunate as I have been, you have been blessed with a wonderful father like my dad, Al Lauter. A father who led you and guided you throughout your life. A man who was there to love you for who you were, not for who they thought you should be. A man who became the yardstick by which I measured all others. I want to thank each of you for taking the time to be here today to celebrate my father's life. I know that my dad would be so happy and humbled to see you all here. My dad was born on April 21st, 1935, a day I've celebrated my entire life. He was 86 when he passed, and I have to say I don't think he wasted one day of his life. My brother Brad said something very heartfelt to me the other day as we were coming to grips with my father's sudden death. He said, "Kelly, if you knew at 59, when Dad had his first open heart surgery, that you would have 27 more years with him, would you have taken it? And at 69, when he had another triple bypass and stroke, that you had 17 more years, would you have taken it?" And of course, the answer is a huge yes. So I know it without a doubt my dad loved his life. He fought for it several times. He accepted each day as the present, and he lived his life well, even as he aged. My father was born in Chicago and grew up in both Chicago and Mendota, Illinois. He loved his Mendota roots and would go back often to visit. He shared with us often as possible annual road trips to visit and to attend the annual corn festival. My dad was the youngest of 7 kids and was very close to all his brothers and sisters. He learned the value of family at a very young age. It is definitely something that I know I have learned from him. I honestly have to say that everyone loved my dad. He created friendships that lasted decades. He valued each and every one. He still had close friends from grade school, high school, and from business that he maintained. He was always ready to tell me all about his reunion meetings, his run-ins at the East Bank Club, and his frequent lunches and breakfasts with old friends. He would share with me so many wonderful stories and memories that he held so dear.
Speaking of which, my dad had the most unbelievable memory. Something my brother is fortunate to have gotten from him, which I do not possess. My dad could remember the craziest stuff: Cubs scores, beer stats, friends' kids' names, month and dates of events that I had no idea he knew. Crazy stuff he would remember that I would have to even sometimes Google it to verify he was, and of course, he was always right. My dad never ceased to amaze me. My dad served in the U.S. Army as a non-combat at Fort Leonard Wood. He was proud to be a veteran, but he really didn't dwell on that time of his life with me that much. My father became involved in the apparel industry from a very young age. His father was a tailor, and they owned a factory in Mendota that produced men's slacks, and that's where it all started. He started his career opening up several men's clothing stores in the Chicagoland area. He then went on to purchase well-known Chicago neckwear company Carter & Holmes in the 1980s. It was at this time that I graduated from the University of Arizona, which I have to throw in. My dad visited often and was known as the happy hour dad. He loved to take me and my friends out for happy hour, and boy, we had a great time. He was so fun. It was always so fun. Anyways, when I finished college, my dad offered me the opportunity to join the family business with Brad and himself. I was so fortunate that I worked with him for 13 years. I learned from him about textiles, sales, and most importantly, to love what you do and do it well. We traveled together and we grew a successful business. It was always important to my father to provide a better life for us kids than he had, and he did it. He taught me a very good, strong work ethic, and I carry it with me today. I can say that I am successful in my career today because of him, and I told him that often. My dad was very well respected and adored by everyone. He always believed in me, and I will be forever grateful to him for always supporting me in my dreams. When my dad retired, the artist in him blossomed. He started painting, and he loved it. His artwork is considered very abstract, and he was immensely proud of his pieces, and I will be displaying several of them at my house today during the Shiva, and I know he'd be really happy that you guys all got to see them. In retirement, he always kept very busy. He was never much for sitting around unless he was watching sports or his favorite Turner classics, as Randy would say on high volume. He would enjoy having lunch with his friends and coming up with new ideas to make money. He would visit me and the kids often to catch up or grab lunch or share his latest and greatest ideas with me, or just to bring me up to speed on his life and to find about ours. He was always checking in. I'm going to miss those times more than I ever thought I would. And I want to ask all of you, I know life gets busy and we forget sometimes to take pause. But please pause. Please enjoy the people you love. Of course, I logically knew my dad was 86 and would not live forever, but I never thought he would be taken from me so suddenly. My father, okay, I don't need to say that. Okay, I'm almost done. Dad always loved sports, and he played them when he was younger. I have memories of him throwing a football or baseball with my brother endlessly growing up. And while I always had interest to be included, I was never very good at it. And my dad kind of declared it a boys' sport, which is so interesting because that's such that generation. But sports held Dad's interest all his life. He loved and cheered for all Chicago sports team. He told me stories how as a young boy he would sell pencils outside Wrigley Field just to have enough money to get a ticket to get in the game. He loved his Cubbies, and he was also a huge Bears, Bulls, and Blackhawks fan. My dad held season tickets for the Chicago Bulls for years, and he was able to see all of the Chicago Bulls championship games proudly. He was also happy while he was alive to see the Cubs finally win a World Series. He couldn't believe it. To say my dad loved to travel is an understatement. He definitely preferred the beach over the mountains or the desert. I have many wonderful memories with him, and one of my favorites is always going annually to our family childhood destination, Longboat Key, Florida, which I later in life, Florida, which as a result I followed to make a family tradition and share with my children growing up, and we still visit often to this day. Later in life, he grew enamored with Mexico and would travel there as often as possible. His favorite spot was Puerto Escondido. He went annually and met up with the same great group of friends, and he would speak about it often. My dad lived life large. He had no problem jumping in his cart for a road trip and did it often. He loved driving. It said he made it feel alive and free. Unfortunately, this last one took his life, but I have to believe he was happy. It's easy to say wonderful things about my father because he was a wonderful human being and father. He had an amazing loud laugh, and he was always the first to laugh the loudest at his own jokes, something I also got from him. My dad loved to have fun. He was creative and is what I would call the idea guy. It seemed to me that to know him was to love him, and everyone who knew him did love him. He was very handsome and was generous with his time and, when possible, with his money. To make my father sound human, I also want to acknowledge he was definitely very stubborn. And while he sometimes ignored the obvious, his intentions were always good. He liked being right, and he normally was. Okay. I've spent my life in the tutelage of a man who taught me to be a wonderful mother, to follow my dreams, and I can honestly tell you, no one believed in me more than my dad. He taught me to take time to travel, to see the world, and to take chances. He taught me to make memories and to have fun. He taught me to love life just as he did. While Dad gammered achievements in his career, I can't help but think if he was asked what his finest legacy to the world would be, he would have never hesitated to say my family. My dad is now survived by me, my brother Brad and Amy, and our children, his grandchildren, Kylie, Brett, Randy, Alex, and Cassidy. My dad was always there for us. He never missed our birthdays, performances, sporting events, and this followed into later years with his grandkids. Guys, you need to know he was so proud of you. He would express it often, and he loved you, and he will always be with you. While I know we have lost a link to the past with Dad's death, I can assure you that we'll always carry his love and hope into the future. Rest well, Dad. You were a gentle man and a gentleman. I love you.
Now that I have about 3 sentences left based on all your wonderful stories, I just have a few of the stories you gave me. Al graduated from Senn High School and attended 1 to 2 years at the University of Illinois and started working from his early 20s. When he spent a few years in the Army serving at Fort Leonard Wood, I've been told that he specialized in unauthorized leave. They couldn't always find him and didn't always know where he was. Brad, you shared how during Sunday school you would often get pulled out to go to the Bears game with the family, and the head of the Sunday school pulled your dad in and said, I don't know what's going on, like Brad's missing every other Sunday. And your dad said that these are family times, these are family events. You can either have Brad some of the time or Brad none of the time, but please don't interrupt our family events. Being Jewish was important, but spending time together was just as important. Al loved to have fun, especially when everyone was in college and he could party with all your friends. Al's nickname was Effin' Genius. He'd always laugh and say, I'm a fucking genius, because Al was always had a good idea, something with legs that could go somewhere, and Al was convinced of his own genius more than anyone else, but he was always thinking, always seeing how things could be better in his industry, in life, in business. Al could see around the corner and always shared his ideas with everyone. Al would give anyone the shirt off his back if that was what it took to be there for you and to help. Al loved reading 5 to 6 books at a time, playing tennis, cards, bridge. He loved going to his reunion meetings and seeing all of his old friends whenever possible. He found the best food wherever he went and always loved taking you all back to taste what he had discovered. Al is gone too soon, tragically, but quickly without great suffering. Family was everything to him. He loved his siblings to no end, and all of his nephews and nieces and children and grandchildren. He loved to be surrounded by you every moment of your lives. He loved to make you laugh and see you succeed in all of your accomplishments. We all try to make the world a better place. We try to raise children that better the world and dote on grandchildren who remind us why we did it all. You were all Al's legacy. He loved sharing his life with you and sharing many laughs with you all. May you always remember the best of Al in his strength and health, and may his memory always be a blessing, as he was such a blessing in all of your lives. A poet wrote, "Fight my fight. Dry your tears and pick up the mantle I've left you. Fight my fight for those in need and for those who never had a me to share their lives. Fight my fight by caring for the stranger, the sick, the silent, the victim, the child, the one who has no one else to come to their side and defend them from the world. Fight my fight because it is the right thing to do. Take my love for you and share it with the rest of the world in hopes of filling it up with a love so big that you find every person in the world standing by your side as a defender of all that is good. May you all fill the world with the light I've always tried to share with every person I've known or loved. My hand may not be in yours, but know that my spirit lives in your heart, and my light can never be extinguished, as long as memories of me give you the strength you need to fight my fight." We continue together in the pamphlets reading the 23rd Psalm on the inside. If one of you want to share with Eunice. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We continue with El Malei Rachamim. If you wish, you may rise. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Torim, Kizohar Kiemazirim, Et Nishmat Ahuvia ben Morris Ubes, Shalach Lolamo, Baal Rachamim Yasterehu, Beseit Kanafav Lolamim, Vitor HaChaim et Nishmato, Adonai hu nachlato, V'yanuach b'shalom, Al Mishkavo v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Al Lauter, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. We continue in the pamphlets with the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divra chirotei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'maru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam olamei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'miran be'alma v'maru. Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'maru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'maru. Amen. May God grant peace to those who mourn and comfort to all bereaved as we say together, Amen. You may be seated. As we prepare for lowering and vaulting, we have one of Al's favorite songs. We ask you to pray silently. When it comes time to place earth into the grave of a loved one, it is the one mitzvah that never is repaid. So we come with our full heart and full devotion, and it's become tradition to place 3 scoopfuls of earth or sand into the grave to show that devotion with which you come to this greatest mitzvah. We pray silently.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, it's customary to participate in the burial. The immediate family will go first. Due to still some COVID protocols at the cemetery, they're required to use a plastic cup, place some earth into the grave, and then place the cup in the garbage right next to it. I will. I got it.
I'm just standing up here with you guys to do it, and then I'll sit down and everybody else is going to do it. Yeah, you can.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, once a family has placed some earth into the grave, those in attendance are invited to place some earth into the grave. The family will get together afterwards at Kelly's residence, 1900 Robin Crest Lane in Glenview. For the remainder of today, they'll be there for Shiva. Thank you. Oh, it's empty?
So your mom's gonna move this a second.
brother Jerry. And that's Carolyn. Carolyn's there. Here's Carolyn. And her husband Nate. Remember? They probably. And then here's your mom. Here's mom here. Here's mom. Mom and dad.
Yeah, and so my dad's next to Grandpa.
Right. So Al is right next to your father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is where Uncle Dan was, but Abby moved him.
Oh, I thought it.
Yeah,
Like, where did he
was
go?
there. He was there. But we were going to bury Dad there, but we couldn't because once it's used, you can't reuse it. Yeah.
She moved. That's weird.
Well, actually,
Yeah, to be with her son, I guess. And
That's what Brian was just saying.
Oh, they moved. Because I remember.
yeah, I think so. She's still here though.
Oh, he's somewhere else in the bar. Oh, I was like, where? I'll take a picture. It's too much shadow.
It's just so
Their ear shadows on it.
Yeah. Okay. I knew Dan was here, and then it's like he's gone. Dan used to be here, but he's somewhere else in the park. They moved.
We've seen each other at a couple things.
So 1951, when you were 22.
Thank you. She did a really good job.
We'll look at 51 to 87. So it's 51. 13 plus 51 is 64.
And we're going to have a great day.
Here, hold on to mom for a second. Brad.
I know, because I live a lot of this place, so I got She went to high school with my dad. Yeah.
Brad's still here. Well, we were going to see him at the house in a couple hours. We'll go back.
But at the reunion, he never missed one. Was it a Monday night thing?
All right, we'll go back in the car. We'll try this out.
They went to high school with Dad and Sad. Yeah.
I feel like I know you. Do I know you from Rabbi Vegan?
Yeah, I went on a trip with Al.
I'm Nashi Husband.
You alright, buddy?
Whatever you want. We're just gonna watch this. And I guess they said it takes 10 minutes after everybody leaves. And then I'm gonna go. My girlfriends will be there. Oh.
Well, we'll see how mom will.
We will now be terminating the live feed.